I'm primarily going to start with talking about the trends in the industry, what we're seeing, what's working. I'm also going to talk about, all of those big buzzwords that we're hearing from all of our plan sponsors, all those employers out there, how financial wellness has and can help them, which will hopefully help when it comes to, your prospecting as well. This financial wellness in general can really help with many of the things that are top of mind and big concerns for all of our plan sponsors. So before I get started, I'm going to launch a polling question, and I want to know, and there's 2 questions. So I want to know, what are you hearing from your employers? What are plan sponsors, what's top of mind right now? Are they concerned about employer improved worker satisfaction or financial stress? What are you hearing? So hopefully you guys can see the poll now. And while you are doing this, perfect, I can see some people are answering, great. And while you're doing this, what I will say just to start is employers and employees are seeking financial wellness solutions more than ever right now. Having been in the industry for, like I said, almost 5 years, since COVID and just everything that's going on, there's been an understanding of why people really need to focus on these things. As an individual, my job hasn't been impacted, but I don't know what's going to happen next. And so even individuals of the employers that we work with are more hyper aware of the things that they need to do to get on track for financial wellness. So it's really driven this big trend of employees asking for financial wellness, employers feeling this need to really help their employees, which has actually been really great for the financial wellness industry just in general. So I'm going to end this and share the results here. So it looks like it's kind of a smattering of things: improving worker satisfaction, increased use of existing benefits, that is a big one, improve retirement preparedness, of course, with this group, reduce healthcare costs, it's the right thing to do. So those are all 50%, and then other things as well. And then what percentage of working Americans are financially well was the other question, and it looks like about 75% of you say about 25%. So in just a moment, I'm actually going to talk about our definition of financial wellness, and I'm going to see if anybody wants to change your mind on that one as well. If I can get the polling question down. There we go. So thank you for all of that information. What I did want to do first is just make sure, for those of you who are not familiar with Financial Finesse, just give you a little background. I think Thomas did a wonderful job, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this, other than to say that our founder and CEO started Financial Finesse back in 1999. We are wholly owned and independent, so we're not part of a financial services company. This is all we do. 100% of our revenue is paid for by our client partners. So whether that be, advisory organizations, record keepers, or clients like the NFL Players Association or, McKinsey and Company, never from the end individual. In fact, even when our certified financial planners, our in-house planners are working with end employees, when that's part of our service, they don't provide advice. They provide coaching and guidance only. And they give up their sales licenses as a condition of employment. So they all have their, sort of plenty of professional designations, but that's the model that we've had our entire existence. Is we want to really just help people with coaching and guidance to help them reach their overall goals. And we partner nicely with advisory organizations because, we help with that element of it. And then, the advisor kind of picks up where we leave off if someone does need, wealth management or other kinds of services as well. We started in the Fortune 1000 space. So working with, Nestle, CVS Health, General Mills, those kind of larger organizations that we've been working with for 10, in most cases, about 15 years at this point, where we really were able to test, refine, and grow our programs. And then with our mission that you see at the top, helping as many people as possible become financially independent and secure, we realized we had to go down market. And really, frankly, with COVID, we realized that it was even more important to do so with small and medium-sized businesses, because those employees are the most financially stressed. We're the most impacted. And so we've had a reemergence of really focusing on the small and medium market space by partnering with a limited number of like-minded partner organizations. And you can see some of the results of our programs. Engage employees experience great quality of life gains, 60% increase in feeling financially prepared for the future, and 28% decrease in feeling financially stressed about their finances. So for those of you who said financial stress, about 50% of you, that's what financial wellness is really designed to do, frankly, whether it's with us or with someone else. So I won't talk about us anymore. What is the definition of financial wellness? So this is our definition. It is quickly becoming kind of the standard definition, I would say, after 20 plus years. But really, it's a state of well-being where a person maintains a manageable level of financial stress. So they're not being up at night, right? Financial stress is not keeping them up at night. A lifestyle at or below their means. So they're not living on, credit card debt and paying those astronomical interest rates, and a strong financial foundation with an adequate emergency savings fund. So we all know those stats on emergency savings funds and how, people can't handle a $50 emergency. We want to make sure that people have that emergency savings fund so that when life happens, because it ultimately will, I promise you it will, they're able to withstand it and be resilient. And by not using necessarily their credit card debt, because we all know that we also have a credit issue here in the US of people using those credit cards or overusing them. And then, of course, sufficient amounts of insurance and the right kind of estate planning for their specific situation. So whether that's medical insurance or life insurance, whether they need a will or trust, whatever makes the most sense for them in their specific situation. And most importantly, a plan to achieve their future goals. I mentioned before when I was at BlackRock looking around and thinking, we're investment experts, but I hadn't really stopped to think about how I was going to reach my future financial goals. And so that's a really big part of it. They don't have to be financially secure, meaning they've accumulated or they've done everything they need to do, but they at least have to have a plan about how they're going to get there. And so that's our definition. Does anybody using that Q&A box, does anybody want to change their answer? I think 25% was the guess on the amount of American workers that are financially well. Anyone want to change their guess? 25% was the answer. So the actual answer is actually less than 5%. So 4% of American workers are financially well based on this definition. And what we as a company do, and what the financial wellness industry as a whole does, is really try to help people become financially well, right? From, the government on down. Everyone wants the economy to grow and wants people to spend money, but we don't learn this stuff in school. And frankly, traditional on this, and I did this for how many years, traditional, lunch and learns on, retirement plans, it's not enough. And if it was, financial wellness wouldn't be a thing, right? I mean, that was me making asset allocation exciting and fun. I'm sorry, I hate to break it to it. We love it, but for the average American, it's not exciting and fun. So from a trend perspective, why are we all talking about it today and continue to talk about it? So 77, according to eBree, 77% of plan sponsors are moderately or highly concerned about their employees' financial wellness. And employers who count themselves as highly concerned, only about a third have a strategy, which means you, as their advisor, consultant, as the person they go to for help, can provide the strategy they need. And I think it's really important that we all, as an industry, are able to help with this particular concern, obviously. The other thing is, for those that do have some element of financial wellness, and it's so disparate on what people consider financial wellness, having a 401k match, some people just call that financial wellness, or, it really does vary. But of people who said they have a financial wellness offering, something that they're offering, 50% said they expect to have an increased budget for them in the near future as well. So it's not just I think just in general, we're hearing that a lot of advisors are being asked to do more, asked to know more, asked to help their the employees of their employers, not just the executives anymore, but they also acknowledge that there could be a fee for it as well. So don't be afraid of that. I think people are willing to pay for a benefit at this point as well. The other study that I really love to mention is Bank of America did a report in March 2020 capturing the pre-pandemic sentiment. And they found that 62% of employers felt extreme responsibility for their employees' financial wellness. So all that to say, financial wellness has been around for a while. We all know that it's picking up steam, and more, particularly in the medium and small size plan market, are looking for something. But it does continue to grow the interest in it. And it has shifted again to more expectations of you all and your practice as well. The last thing that I will mention, because I was talking to an advisor just the other day, and he pointed out a survey that Fidelity actually put out recently. And what they found, and this is what prompted him to call us and say, hey, what can I do for my practice? Because I don't want to be in this stat. They found that despite plan sponsors reporting a high level of satisfaction with their advisors, a higher level now more than ever, 34% of plan sponsors, those same plan sponsors, are actually looking to switch advisors. And that number is actually the highest since the DOL fiduciary rule came into play. So, that particular advisor said, I need to do more, and can you guys help me? So just something to be aware of. And it's the Fidelity Plan Sponsor Attitude Survey, if you want to look it up. It was easy for me to find once he told me about it. So I'm not going to belabor this point, but urgent help is needed. We know that for American workers, it is needed. If you haven't heard the term already, financial resiliency is just such a hot topic. I do hear financial resiliency more in the very large client market, so in the other side of our business, but it has started to kind of trickle down into the medium and small market space, but less so than it's just everywhere in the large market. Everybody wants to build this financial resiliency, particularly, again, we don't know what the next emergency is going to be, but we want employees to be able to have their finances under control so that they can have happier, healthier, and productive work lives as well. Also, someone mentioned it at the start, 50% of you said navigating benefit options. I have some stats on here, but I read a study that said people spend less than 18 minutes picking their benefits every year. And, I know we're all more retirement plan people, but picking your healthcare benefit today has such a big impact on your life. Picking the right benefit, right? Whether it's a high deductible health plan, the HMO, the PPO, or whatever kind of plans you have. I remember, again, going back to my probably second job where we had these wonderful benefits, and asking my boss, I don't know what health plan to pick. And he told me, oh, get the PPO plan because it's the best. It's the most expensive, but get it. And that's what I did. And I stayed in it for my 10-year career with that company. And, that is not what I would, obviously that is not the right thing to do. His personal situation is not my personal situation. I don't even know if high deductible healthcare plans were even on the menu back then. They probably weren't, but either way, that is not the best decision. So one other thing that financial wellness is very key for employers, and that is helping people maximize their employer-sponsored benefits. And then, of course, near and dear to my heart, and to some of you, according to that first survey, reducing financial stress. About a third of employees these days have high or overwhelming financial stress. And it's for a variety of reasons, right? There's mental health issues, there's healthcare issues. Unfortunately, our financial coaching line is talking to more and more people that are considering divorce. Right? Number one cause of divorce is still financial related. So many reasons why there is this financial stress, but being able to do kind of exactly what financial wellness is designed to do, which is help people get that foundational item, those foundational items in order so they can be resilient. Number one, can help people sleep at night. And then that allows them capacity to then focus on their longer term objectives, retirement planning being one of them. And I just wanted to remind people, please do feel free to use the Q&A button throughout. I'm pretty good at going back and forth. So if I see something, I will try to answer as well. So moving on to some additional trends. So we do a year in review. So every year we look at what's happened over the course of the year through our think tank. And our think tank has been gathering data on, employee data for 15 plus years. What's working from a financial wellness perspective, what's not, what's the difference between different demographics, men and women, higher paid employees, lower paid employees, what's working. And in 2022, or 2020, jumping ahead. In 2020, what we found is that employees who were engaged in financial wellness, they progressed the most since we've been collecting this data from a financial resilience perspective. Vulnerable populations progressed the most. And I think this is part what I was saying before, which is there is a realization by American workers today that COVID happened, it didn't impact them, but we don't know what's going to happen next. And I better get myself financially prepared for something, I don't know what it could be, for the future. So we've had a lot more awareness of where gaps are and a lot more people interested in moving forward. And I will say that we even, this number does include employers that laid off employees as well. So we do work with employers where they had layoffs, furloughs. One employer, a smaller employer that came to us, a retail employer came to us at the start of COVID and said, we're heartbroken that every single one of our employees is impacted by us because we have to either lower their hours so they're making less money or they're going to be furloughed. But every single employer or employee was impacted, but they came to us and said, we do need to do something for them. And that's what, they had to lower a bunch of other stuff, but then they had a little bit of leftover money to just be there for them from a financial wellness perspective, help them, figure out unemployment and how they're going to get through and all of that fun stuff. So, if nothing else, I think, we obviously never want these kinds of things to happen, but the shining star in all of it is that people are starting to become more financially well because of what happened and what might happen next. Resilient employees, what we've seen is they also have 17 times less stress, which is amazing, right? I mean, that's the golden ticket. If we can help people become more financially resilient, again, we've also seen that those people can then focus on retirement planning. So if you're like me and you've, tried to get everyone to, you've done auto enrollment or auto escalation, both, or your plan sponsors aren't ready to do that, but they want to do something, then, getting people to be financially resilient first allows them to then be able to focus on that retirement preparedness and getting people on track. And lastly, when it comes to our year in review, we always look at racial, gender disparities and disparities in general in the climate that we're in today and the awareness around the racial disparities. I think, people are even more aware. So this is another trend that I think has started to come down market from those larger employers that we work with, and we're starting to see more from the medium and small market, which is wanting to figure out what they can do to really help people of color. And so we've definitely worked in that space, and I'll share a little bit more data on what we've done and how financial wellness in general can help, and things that you can do with your people, with your plan sponsors as well. But they definitely exist, no matter how you slice and dice it. There is not only a wealth gap, and we all have seen the data on the wealth gap that exists, but you have to close not just the wealth gap, but you have to close that financial wellness gap in order to then, close the wealth gap, unless someone's just going to close the wealth gap for us, which I don't think that's going to happen. An example of a racial disparity, just to give you the scale of it, if you think of the most financially stressed group, it's women and women of color. And so and people who have kids, and you can imagine the way that looks, and I'll show you a little bit later, but what we saw is almost 50% of single African-American moms report higher overwhelming levels of financial stress. And that's kind of the cohort that is the most financially stressed. And then, you look at, married men, and that number is much, much, much lower. So those are the kinds of things that we look at with, our clients, and want to help them understand it and make sure that financial wellness can really move the needle, and you can do the same with you. Now, I talked a lot about resilience, so I do want to make sure that I don't just gloss over that, and want to make sure that you all know what I mean when I say financial resilience. When I say financial resilience, what I'm really talking about is cash flow, right? So they're living within their means. They're not going over and putting money on their credit cards, like I mentioned, and even, credit cards down there on the bottom. They're not rolling them over and paying that exorbitant interest rate, which can be put toward their retirement plan in a much more productive way, right? They also have that emergency fund. And then the last really big one that causes a lot of financial stress with the people that we see and within our data is they're comfortable with the amount of debt they have. And I'm not talking about mortgage debt, because that's different. If that's causing stress, it's a whole different ballgame. But I'm talking about they're comfortable with whatever debt they have. So it's the student loan debt. In fact, that group of African-American single moms, 66% of them are struggling with their student loan debt as well. So we've all heard our clients talk about that younger employees are not comfortable with their debt. So we want to make sure that we get them comfortable. And part of that is just helping them understand how they're going to pay that off, and showing them that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But those are all the items I'm talking about when it comes to financial resilience. So why are employers busy today, right? So if you are talking with your prospects, and maybe you have some prospects that are interested in working with you, but it's not their top priority. Financial wellness in general, if you do financial wellness in any shape or form, it can solve so many of the big topics, so many of the big issues that are out there today that our plan sponsors are facing. So, if you're going in and talking about the retirement plan specifically, but you offer wellness, I would challenge you to take a step back and really, figure out what it is that's most important. So some of the biggest things that we see on our side that are the biggest things that our plan sponsors are talking about are recruitment and retention, right? I keep hearing stats about the great turnover, I can't remember all the different terms, but people are starting to look for new jobs, and people are really struggling to hire new people right now, even more so. Financial wellness is a way, if you embed it within the company, if you embed your financial wellness within the company, you can help with recruiting more people. You can help with getting people to have less stress, so they're not going next door to the other company that's paying them 20 cents more. And I'll go into some of these in a little more detail based on what you told me earlier. The Great Resignation, Tom, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, the Great Resignation. If your employer has talked or mentioned that healthcare is really, really just killing them, the high level of healthcare, I'll show you a case study in just a minute that shows the impact of financial wellness on healthcare. Some of the other things that I think that you mentioned, poor participation in benefits, and obviously because of this group, delayed retirement as well, people who are working beyond their desired age, people not prepared to retire, and who can't leave, and they're getting older, and that's costing more for healthcare and the like. So all of these things on this screen, many of which were your highest items, are all things that you can tackle with financial wellness, ways to be your employer's top priority when it comes to listening to you, right? Or your prospects' top priority, right? You're not just talking about the investments within the retirement plan, but you're really there to become a problem solver and to really help them achieve, their most important objectives today. So because of who is on the phone today, I'm going to start with retirement readiness. And I'm going to dig into that a little bit more. So we all know the cost of retirement readiness, or we've heard some of them, but I just laid out a couple of stats that have come out in the last couple of years. And some of these are from, for example, Prudential did a great study where they looked at incremental annual workforce costs. And they said at 1 to 1.5% related to delayed retirement. Our research tells us here at Financial Finesse that just for hard costs, it costs an employer $50,000 per employee per year in costs related to delayed retirement. But there are lots of great stats out there. The crazy one, the one that just blows my mind, if you have an employer with 3,000 employees, and their workforce cost is $200 million. So if you're a very successful company, it's $2 to $3 million. So depending on the size of your employer, these different numbers will be easier to calculate, but those are the expected costs. Now, does financial wellness really impact this cost? What does it do? So here's an actual case study, right? This is a case study that we did with one of our clients. And again, we really did focus on those resiliency items first. I can't say that enough, because especially for younger employees where retirement is so far in the future, you do have to speak their language, make sure that you help them with what they need first, again, to then be able to focus on those longer term objectives. And what we saw in this case study, we did a 5-year study with this particular client, and we looked at year 1 and then what happened by year 5. And we saw, by focusing on those resiliency items, we saw that investor confidence improved by 26 percentage points, which then led to a 50% increase in retirement plan contributions and a 41% increase in HSA account contributions. Now, going back to that study that I mentioned from Fidelity, one of the things that they called out is that plan sponsors are really asking their advisors to become experts in HSAs, because people, and that, if you can hear it, that's my 3-year-old son who has COVID. He's fine, but he's in the other room, so I'm sorry. That's life these days, right? So anyhow, those are the outcomes. And what we saw, that 3 times the retirement plan participants are nearly 3 times as likely to feel on track for retirement. So at the start, when we asked people who was on track for retirement, 21% of the cohort said felt like they were on track for retirement. At the end of the 5 years, almost 60%, so 57% said that they were on track for retirement as well. So, in an environment where 70% of workers in general say that they are either not on track or don't know if they're on track for retirement, this is something that can really help when it comes to retirement preparedness. I am going to jump to, with this group, let's jump to healthcare next as well. If anyone wants to, because I think that was one of the things as well that you guys said, if there's anything that I haven't talked about yet, just because we're getting close, please in the Q&A, let me know. I've got lots of slides and I'm trying to make sure that I answer the questions that you guys specifically have. So I'll go through probably 2 more of these items, but healthcare is obviously continues to go up astronomically. And in fact, some little tidbits of ways, even to, if you have advisors, I speak to some advisors who say that their plan sponsors maybe don't want to spend the money on a full-fledged financial wellness program. Maybe they only want to do, smaller things. We have had advisors and plan sponsors who have been able to get money from their healthcare plans because they offer some stipends to help pay for things that help with healthcare costs, right? Or healthcare claims. And on this study, hopefully that explains why this is really important. Also, we've seen 401k, some investment managers, some target date fund managers who incorporate us within what they do, because they know it also, having us leads to better retirement outcomes and helps fill some gaps in financial wellness. So sometimes advisors as well have asked their target retirement date strategies to pay for these services. So just to give you some ideas of ways to pay, if that happens to be an issue, those are some things that we've seen as well. Now, this is a healthcare study with another client where we looked at, and this is a client that we worked with for many years before we did this, but we did a healthcare study over a 2-year period where we looked at healthcare claims and the changing costs of healthcare. And we saw that there was a $271.50 difference between those that engaged in financial wellness and those that did not. So for non-users, healthcare costs went up by 19.4%. And for those that used the benefit over that 2-year period, healthcare costs went down by 4.5%. So just very directly tying the cost of healthcare to people that are engaging in financial wellness. Now, the benefit of that is a couple of fold, right? We know that there's a strong, not just correlation, but just there could be a very strong impact here. But also, I know on for some advisors, they've also struggled with how do they get this to be top of mind so that they can really get great engagement. And we've seen wonderful engagement, high engagement. And then, if you just want to set and forget it, it might be less engagement. If you're going to be able to show things like this, I guarantee you, your plan sponsor is going to be excited about this program, excited to promote and get on board and really use this program. So things like this can really help, with prospecting or with getting financial wellness and the things that you can do for them top of mind and to become a priority, frankly, in a time where everyone's attention span is disparate and on other items sometimes. And then that stat there, 90% of employees agree that financial considerations negatively impact their daily lives. And it is a combination of things that happen, but finances really are something that tend to sit, you push it out of your head because you don't have time for it, and you don't even realize how much stress it causes you sometimes until it's gone, because you've worked with someone, an advisor or financial wellness person, to be able to relieve that stress. So the other thing that I am going to do next is diversity, equity, and inclusion, because that is something that we've heard a lot about, and I know I put it into the blurb that we were going to talk about. So I want to talk about that next. I mentioned, the financial stress or the Great Divide, a tale of two employees, and this just kind of highlights the big disparities. But there really, when you control for all items, there really is a financial wellness disparity. And the other thing I'll say is, a lot of times we find that people assume that the more money, so if you have a professional services organization, the more money that you make, the more financially well you are. And I will say that the nice thing is, while that is true, and that's great that it's true, you would expect the line to be pretty upward sloping. It's actually relatively flat. So it is 100% true. The more money you make, the more financially well you inherently tend to be. But the line is flat. And I'll tell you a story about from one of our financial coaches. I was talking to one of my coaches, Linda, and she took a phone call on the financial coaching line and was talking to a woman who, just for context and cost of living perspective, this person lives in Chicago, and the woman called because she wanted to put her student loans in deferral, and she knew that she could talk to a financial coach about what that means, how do I do it, all of the elements related to that. So Linda helped her understand those items and then got her to open up. And it turns out that this woman makes $200,000 a year. Her husband makes another $200,000 a year, but they have really expensive car leases. They have a beautiful home. They're really living the life. They have, kids with an expensive nanny and expensive schools. And all that to say, it doesn't matter if you make a lot of money or a little money. In the US, people in general just don't manage their money well, frankly. And to be able to help people get on the right track with small changes that they can make in their daily lives that have a massive impact can be really powerful. And this just highlights what I said before too. The other important thing for you guys too is if you do have a very diverse workforce and you do go in and talk to these employees, the top 3 financial priorities that we're seeing, in this case, it's for single African-American moms, but it's similar for all, it's generally similar for people of color. Getting out of debt, managing cash flow, and buying a home tend to be those really big items. So if you can, work with people on these items, those are their priorities and reasons why they would like help. And then again, and a lot of those are more short-term planning, or that one longer-term idea is buying a home, but there's no space in there for putting more money in the retirement plan, you'll notice. So getting those items, kind of answering those questions, helping them with those things successfully does get them to then be in a place where they're able to focus on that retirement planning. And then for the other groups, it does tend to be retirement planning tends to be one of those top items that they do want to talk about. But it really does vary on all the other topics. So for some people it is, college funding. I do tend to see that where people really, really struggle today, just overall, is with planning for college funding. People have every intention of doing it, but never get around to doing it, from what I can see. So that's also another good way to engage, organizations, depending on the age of employees as well. So I'm going to talk for about 5 more minutes, and then I'm going to leave time for questions. But just to give you an idea of how financial wellness does close that gap when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, which does tend to be top of mind for a lot of the employers that we're talking to today. Again, in the large plan side, is everywhere. Small and medium plan size, I've been seeing it more and more. It's less common, but more and more people are asking the question. I think a lot of them don't know what to do, frankly. They want to do something, but they don't know what to do. So again, you can be that help for them. But this is an overall looking at return users of our programs and what the impacts have been. This is our financial wellness score. So it's on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being fully financially well. And you can see over time, people within these 2 categories have had 16 to 18% improvements in their overall scores, while for people of color, we've seen 27% improvement in scores. And frankly, the reason we tend to see that is because the more financially stressed people are, frankly, the easier it is for us to make small changes and get big improvements, more so than, really focusing. And yes, we do focus on different elements and different groups for different reasons, but really that's why we're seeing those big changes, because the more financially stressed you are, the easier it is to make an impact. And then here's just to really solidify what those scores kind of mean. You can see some of the improvements. So again, those top 2 on the left, cash flow and debt, being able to, look at how they're improving across those things. 39% increase in being able to handle their daily cash flow. 41% increase in helping them be comfortable with the amount of non-mortgage debt that they have. So what is their plan to get out of that debt so it's not stressing them out? Financial wellness can really help with those big picture items, those key things that you're on the top of mind for the employers that you work with, that maybe they're not making the connection or realizing that they can. So particularly for those of you who are growing your business, I would encourage you to, I'm sure you always ask them what's going on, how is business, but I would encourage you to focus on those things that are most important to them and how you as an advisor can really help them with that top priority that they have. So I'm gonna leave it at that and see if anybody has any questions. I don't see any questions in the QA. Tom, do you have any questions?
Yeah, Lisa, actually, I was wondering if you talk, and this certainly isn't intended to be a financial finesse commercial, but it's certainly going to appear that way. A lot of folks will go about, they'll simply rely on their partner, for a wellness solution, rather than giving something that's comprehensive and meaningful to their employees. But what I found, with a lot of advisors and partners who I've worked with over the years, is not just to have the tool in place, but then there also needs to be measurement beyond that. Who's using it? How is it being utilized? What's important to them? That way, that makes the advisor more effective in the education that they provide. Can you talk a little bit about some considerations there?
Yeah, that's a great comment. It is so critical to be able to see how it's impacting the employees that are engaged, right? It's so important. And so we do gather a ton of data and ton of information, and slice it and dice it by different, ages and the like, to be able to show that impact. And I think that when we partner with advisors, the data that we can provide to help the employer understand what's going on with their population tends to be one of the most powerful things that they use. At least that's what they tell us. It tends to be powerful. More and more, we've been focused on doing what we consider powered by. So advisors are able to use a more sort of white labeled version, right? So it's really about the advisor and what they're providing to their plan, so that they can really lead the program, show the client what's happening, and then build the right kind of webcasts and interventions that their practice is comfortable doing. So for example, we cover all of the foundational items. Sometimes advisors really only focus on retirement planning, obviously, investments, insurance, maybe some estate planning, but to get those people that need that basic financial help, that help first, to be able then to be potential candidates for those kinds of services, can be so powerful. And it's a natural complement. Our businesses are a natural complement to each other because of that. Or even, if you have someone who's buying a home, we've got life events and things that people can go to help them through that process. And guess who they're going to think of when they need to talk to someone again, who's directed them to that resource? They're going to be talking to you. So
great, thank you. And then a question did come in from really a unique name, anonymous attendee. How do investment advisors work with Financial Finesse? So I'll answer the first end of it and then hand it over to you, Lisa. One of the ways that you can work with Financial Finesse is that there are a number of record-keeping platforms that do offer the Financial Finesse offering as an additional resource as part of their, employee and plan sponsor experience. If you'd like more information on those platform record keepers, who they are and how to work with them, please feel free to reach out directly to any of the Definity external regional sales directors or regional sales consultants. They can assist you there. But in working directly with Financial Finesse, I'll kick that one over to you, Lisa.
Yeah, so I mentioned a second ago, sort of there are several ways to work with us, but I would say that the most successful things that we do are really partnering with advisors in a very deep way. And we only do it with a limited number of advisors, but really those that embrace financial wellness kind of across their business. And we do it in what I mentioned before, in a powered by way. So our goal is to understand your business, what you're trying to solve for, and then structure a program around that. So whether that just be our online platform, with Amy, our artificial intelligence, or whether it includes some elements of our coaching as well. Our goal is to really partner with, again, people that are really passionate about financial wellness and really want to embrace it, and build something customized around your practice.